All right. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Gemma Putty, bringing health and wellness conversations from across North Idaho and this region. I'm so excited to chat with entrepreneurs, creatives, and believers as we journey together to connect more deeply to ourselves, our earth, and our communities. So today we've got episode number 2 already. Woo woo! I am talking with Chelsey Borgstrom. She is the founder and genius behind Simply See. She will help you simplify your life, maximize your budget, and minimize food waste through innovative food ideas, menu planning, and alternatives to waste less. So welcome, Chelsey.
Hi, Gemma. I'm happy to be here.
Hey, thanks for joining me.
On this nice, bright, sunny Tuesday.
Yes, right. Enjoying the last few days of summer.
Yeah.
So I think to start with, I met you at the Athol Farmers Market. Now it's been a couple of weeks ago, and I think just kind of hit it off immediately as I was buying one of your Beeswax Wraps. So maybe tell us a little bit about your story. I know you've traveled a little bit, been to Alaska, and now you're living here in Coeur d'Alene and quit your corporate job. So I'm going to stop talking for you and let you tell your own story.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I know if you would have asked me 5 years ago, 2 years ago, if I'd be living in Northern Idaho, I would have probably laughed at you. It's kind of funny. So I spent 13 years in the corporate retail world, fashion merchandising. So on the buying side, a lot of strategy development, managing people development overall. It was a blast. And I was one of those people who, growing up, I always knew what I wanted to do, which was at the time be a fashion designer. And I would draw pictures of, I can remember them very specifically, these little black and white dresses on women on napkins when we were at restaurants, wherever we were. She always had big chunky heels and a black and white dress on. So fast forward when it was time to go to college, it was super easy. Retail merchandising, that's what I wanted to do. And graduated in 4 years, took the fast track into retail, worked for a tiny little regional retailer called Shopco, and that was really the foundation of where I learned how to be a buyer. I learned all the reporting, how to interact with people, how to communicate with vendors. And that was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Got a little tired, my husband and I, of the small town, rural area. And I was always traveling to New York for this position. And it made me realize that at the time in our life, which was 6 years ago, we really wanted more of that metropolitan living, more culture, more music. Because when you start to travel, you kind of fall in love with all the aspects of what you don't necessarily surround yourself with. So we were looking for more options. So we moved to Seattle 6 years ago, and I was working for an online retailer called Zulily, and the place was fantastic. I met so many cool people, and that's really when I started to realize that I had this entrepreneurial spirit inside of me, and they're the ones who ignited it, because it's a totally different business model. You're not buying any inventory, and you're just constantly chasing and reacting and living in the moment. And you're running your own business within a business. But at the same time, as much as I love this place and all the people I worked with, what I found myself realizing is what I was falling in love with more about being at that company was the culture that I was getting to experience when I was constantly traveling to LA. So I was traveling once or twice a month at least to LA, and I worked primarily with South Korean vendors, and they would take me to these amazing restaurants, and they would tell me all their stories of their family, and I just really started to fall in love with the travel aspect and cultural aspect of my position.
Right. And
that's really where I started to push myself with food. And because you're having flavors and you're understanding all these cultures and these stories and the history behind so many of these meals. And really, I found myself connecting to so many different people, again, from all over the world, just by sharing a meal. And we would, I know, it's so cool. Food's so cool. And we would spend like 4 hours just chatting and sharing stories. And I realized that it was time for more. And I needed to find more ways to connect to people and more ways to find myself to be able to connect with people. So it was this random February day that Dan, my husband, so he's a brewer and he's been brewing for 13 years. And he looked at me and he said, "All right, Chelsey, what would you think about quitting our jobs, putting everything into storage and moving to Alaska for the summer right outside Denali National Park?" I said, "I'm into it." And this was February and our lease was going to be ending in May. So all of the timing was perfect.
Right.
And we didn't hear back for like a month. And so at that time, it's like a month is forever ago. Like it wasn't even on our minds anymore.
Right.
You got this random call from an Alaska number, and they left a voicemail and they said, "Hey, we want to chat with you." And the chat went really well and they offered him the position. And I can still remember where I was. I was in LA and it was the middle of March. And I was walking to my favorite yakitori restaurant there, and Dan forwarded me the email and they accepting the offer. And I said, "All right, things are about to change." And what was really cool is I loved that so much of my story, meaning my career, making the change, when things started to really open my eyes that I wanted more culture around me, it was in a place that opened my eyes and made me realize that I wanted more of it. You know, it's just so much part of the story.
Right, right. Well, and you feel like, don't you feel like too, once you like realize there's a shift that you need, like, yes, this was great and it served me for a while, but then you start seeing new things and you start seeing those new opportunities because it's like you've aligned yourself with like the creative, the global cuisine. Isn't it funny how that kind of happens?
Yeah, I know. It's all of a sudden like this light goes off because you could have been doing it just on autopilot for a couple years, and then all of a sudden it's one thing and you're like, holy crap.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you guys moved to Alaska.
Yeah, we did. So he ended up moving in the middle of April, and I stayed just to give my company enough time because it's a lot to learn. Like it's still very much in a startup mentality where all the systems are homegrown. But anyway, so I left up there in the middle of May, and we lived right outside Denali National Park, on top of the brewery, which was kind of above the prep kitchen.
Okay.
Which in theory sounds like a lovely thing, and it was. It was the size of a Tokyo flat, probably 200 square feet, and we were working with one burner and one toaster oven, and the place constantly smelled like bacon because the smoker was right outside and they cooked off bacon every morning. And again, I know in theory sounds lovely, but would you really want to smell bacon every single morning for 5 months?
Heck no.
Yeah,
Experiences
exactly. But I would say I was able to connect the travel and the passion and the food, the culture, very quickly into Alaska, because what I never realized is just how much it takes to get food to us. And it gave me even more of an appreciation for being intentional with what I eat, what we eat, and also making sure that we don't waste anything. There was one grocery store and they had very little for produce, very little for food, because it's in Healy, Alaska. So the closest city is 2.5 hours north, which is Fairbanks.
Okay.
And the food travels by boat, by train to get to you. And so it really makes you realize, okay, a lot of work went into this. And not to mention the farmers who grew up behind the scenes. I need to appreciate every single thing that's in front of me. It was expensive, but also, again, there was just so much carbon footprint that went into it that I wanted to make sure that we used absolutely everything that we had.
That's awesome. So you had a limited kitchen and then you had limited food supplies. So I know even like being raised, you guys came from a background of like, was it one of you that was raised on a farm? Or you were raised with like home cooked meals and that a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then,
yeah,
so
both.
then it evolved kind of when, would you say really when you moved up to Alaska?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just one of those where all of a sudden it clicked, and we had to be resourceful, not just because everything was expensive and we had very little to work with, but we didn't have a lot of options, and we had been so spoiled with the food that we wanted to eat. And I have no problem calling us spoiled with the cuisine we've been able to eat, but we didn't want to give that up because so much of my story growing up. So yeah, my grandpa had a massive garden. My great grandma had a farm, and then on Dan's side, they have a beautiful dairy farm in western Wisconsin. And we wanted to make sure that we continue that culture alive of growing as much as you possibly can, but also cooking a meal together. And my mom and my dad were awesome with all of us kids cooking home cooked meals. And I can remember cutting onion, dicing carrots, and it's all part of the story. And so I wanted to make sure that even though our resources were limited, Dan and I still had the opportunity to do that in Alaska. We talk about our day, and we cook, and we just continue to share stories and always learn even more about each other.
I agree. I think when we live such busy lives, like there's that time in the day where if all else throughout the rest of the day, that's my sacred time too with my family to be like, we're going to sit down together and chat and connect before you're going to bed and you're running off to do this. And so was that, because now you're doing meal planning here in Coeur d'Alene. So how did it evolve from you kind of doing it up there for yourselves to then did you start meal planning up there? Was that kind of where you're like this entrepreneur business came up?
Yeah. So people have always asked me questions. And Gemma, you and I talked about this. We're both very creative people.
Yeah. For sure.
And creativity just kind of comes natural to us. So up in Alaska, in Seattle, my parents, my family, my friends, they've always come to me and said, "Hey, Chelsey, I don't know what to make for dinner. I have a red pepper, I have chicken, I have cilantro. What should I make?" And so I've started just giving them ideas for dinner. And my mom has always told me, I mean, she's been my biggest supporter forever, not just as a mom, but because she sees the talent inside of me more than I even did or do, I should say.
Right.
But she told me, she's like, she always says, hashtag ask Chelsey. Like, okay, well, there has to be something on this, because she always comes to me and people come to me with, like I said, what should I make for dinner? But to take it one step further, I have half a pepper, or I have carrots that are about to go bad. How do I preserve them, or what can I do with them?
Right.
And it was a foreign concept, because I'm like, okay, I get what they're trying to say, but how do I make this into one package where it's relevant for people and works within their lifestyle and also in their budget? Because in the end, all I want to do is I want to help people. I want there to be less food waste, and I want to make sure that everybody's taking care of themselves and just being more thoughtful with what they put into their bodies. So I developed a couple different, I developed my website, which is simplyc.online. Mm-hmm. And so there's a couple different menu plans out there, and it's always evolving. And I think that that's what we do as entrepreneurs, because you continue to learn from people along the way, from experiences along the way, and just by listening to your clients. But what people utilize the most from my website, and it's a cool concept, it doesn't really exist out there. It's an unlimited Q&A. So it's basically, I'm available to you through instant message all the time. So you can just ask me quick questions, and it fits within a budget. I mean, it's $15 a week. And I can answer questions on leftovers. I'll answer questions on, I don't know, where to go to dinner, suggestions on travel. It's really anything. It's not just about food. But I think the biggest thing that sets me aside from other people is when you buy a meal plan from me, I don't just offer you a meal for Monday through Saturday. It's really a meal that fits within your budget, which can be as low as $20 a week. And I'll give you meal ideas for meals using just 6 different ingredients. Everybody thinks that you need to throw more together and more is more, but there's so much flavor that you can develop within such simple ingredients, as long as you have the right pantry staples and seasonings, fresh herbs, green onions. There's so much, I think, that gets overlooked, because food can be intimidating to people. Right. But at the end of the day, it's just food.
Well, and I find it too, I think, so, because I mean, you've seen my Instagram, like I'm that person. People are like, who takes pictures of food? I'm like, me, I love food. It needs to have lots of color and texture, and but people, it's like more often than not, people are like, I don't know how you do this. And for me, I was kind of raised the same way that you were. It's that we just had home cooked meals, and my grandparents had a huge garden, and I've just always, it's been part of what we do. But nowadays, even I caught myself the other day, I was like, I don't want to cook. I don't even want to think about this. Let's get takeout. And then we got takeout, and it was fine. But I'm like, by the time I ordered it, went to get it, came back, And I'm maybe a food snot. I'm like, I could have grabbed that tomato out of the fridge and the kale, and I could have thrown some balsamic with the salmon burgers that, yes, I have from Costco, but are still delicious. And I could have done that in just as much time as it took for me to go and get takeout, which I also appreciate supporting local. But I think we put it such a big burden on cooking a meal. And it's kind of like you were saying, having the pantry staples that you're like, I just always know that I've got X, Y, and Z because my kids will eat that. And I love this. And this is the good protein. And it just empowers you to like always have the tools ready to go. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we talked about this a little bit the other day, but the customers that I have, the clients that I have, they vary. Because I have people who are just starting to cook and they're doing this because they want to be more intentional and they want to save money and they want to start to learn so that they too can support themselves, breakfast, lunch, dinner. But then I also have people who all they're looking for is an occasional, hey, what should I make for dinner tonight? Because I don't feel like thinking about it.
Right. No, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and making it like not daunting, like you're saying, that's awesome. Because I think even if you weren't raised that, like, there's so many opportunities, like make a quiche, just whip up some eggs and whatever. Actually text Chelsey because she'll guide you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And I make it super easy. So my Instagram's linked to my website and I have like multiple links on my website to just quick reach out to me. So I can usually get back to people within 24 hours on the longest end, I would say.
Nice. Well, and I think you're bringing such light too. I know we even talked about I mean, yes, the value and just the vegetables that we get, but then also eating seasonally. And then you even talked about I think we called it the dinged up vegetables.
Yeah.
That you were was that from Alaska where that was an option?
Yeah. Well, so that's where I realized it was an option. So it was the coolest thing because they would have produce that would a pepper with a ding on it or a tomato that's dented. And they would put all of these bags of mixed produce together and put it in a cart and sell it for 50 cents a pound. And so that's really where I was like, this is a great idea. And now there's a couple grocery stores around this area that do the same thing where you can pick up produce. And I kind of use that as my inspiration on what we're going to make for the week. So even if it's a zucchini that's incredibly soft and mushed, I don't care because I can turn it into muffins, I can turn it into bread, or I'm going to cook it up and I'll find a way to crisp it anyway.
Where can you get them locally?
So there's a produce stand, I don't even know the name of it, that's open right now, I think until the end of October. It's on Government and Dalton. And they sell, and their produce is incredible, but they have little bags of produce by the register that are all just $1 a bag. So I went and got a bag of 6 cucumbers the other day for $1 and made pickles.
I love that. I even have friends that are like, my spinach is going bad. Do you want it? Otherwise I'm going to throw it away. And I'm like, don't throw it away. Like either put it in the freezer, make a smoothie, make some saag paneer, right?
Yeah.
There's like so many options. And I think, and realizing that produce is the stuff that shows up on like the grocery store shelves, it's all pretty, but is that really how it came out of the ground? And what kind of story are we being told from, we're being set up to have this like beautiful produce, that's not always reality. Like I love that part of going to the farmer's market and you get the carrot that's like got 3 legs or whatever. And it's like, this is real and it's fun and it's creative. And yeah, so I love that dinged produce, and then it's more affordable too.
Heck yeah, girl. And it's so funny. I love that you called out the freezer because you can freeze about anything. And like with spinach, put it in the freezer and then you can put it into soup or pasta later because it's going to be soft anyway.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And the bananas, I'm like, banana ice cream is one of my favorite things. So like the bananas that were going bad, I'm like, freeze them. We'll put them in the blender later and we'll make ourselves some ice cream or a smoothie or whatever else. So awesome.
Yeah.
Yay. I could talk with you about food all day long.
I know.
Right? What about even, so people have different like allergies, or we've talked a little bit about like global cuisine, or really I think both you and I are learning as we get older that it's really like making sure that you're tuning into your body and listening to what you need. Like these fad diets, like eat all bacon, eat no meat at all, eat blah, blah, blah. Like, it's so overwhelming for anyone nowadays, right? We're just trying to do the best for our bodies. And we're like, oh, what is your kind of thought and what do you like to work with on that with your meal planning?
So everybody has different diets, and whatever works for you is fantastic. It's just all about making sure that you feel good and you're taking care of your body. So one of the very first questions that I ask when I start working with someone who I don't know and who might be a reference through a friend or a family member is just if they have any dietary allergies, or also if they are on some kind of catered diet that maybe because they're on a weight loss journey, maybe because they have health issues. So I incorporate all of that into my meal planning. And in no way, I'm not a dietitian, but I'll do my research and make sure that I'm offering you healthy suggestions.
That's awesome. I kind of like that too, because I mean, even in my like life coaching, holistic coaching, I'm not your doctor. Have your doctor kind of tell you what you should or shouldn't be eating, but then I can help you with the creative part and the day to day, right? It's kind of the same.
That's really where it's more about. It's more about the creativity. Like, you
Right.
know what you can and can't eat, and you know what you have to omit. I'm really just here to make sure that you like your food, you're enjoying what you're eating, you're sharing stories over a meal, and giving you ideas also for your leftovers. Because people buy, I think everybody uses recipes, and that's great. And it works for a lot of people. Myself, I don't use recipes. I just go off of taste. Um, but yeah, I think when people buy things for recipes, there ends up being a lot of food waste because it'll say you need uh, 3 bell peppers, but you might only use half of each of them. And so then what are you doing with the other half of all the other 3 of them?
That's a really good point for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. I'm let's talk about global cooking really quick, just because I love that and that adds the creativity. You said you started to do really a lot of was it Asian inspired after like
Yeah.
being in traveling to LA quite a bit, and you still like to do that quite a bit?
Oh, yeah. I would say 75% of what we eat is probably Southeast Asian inspired. So, and also Korean inspired. And no way, again, am I a master at any of this stuff. It's really just what we like to eat. Like, we love kimchi. We love multiple different types of curry. We love rice noodles. We love chili crisp. It's really those kind of things. But um, Asian food, Asian inspired food, it's very inexpensive for us to eat that way because it's rice noodles, and it's vegetables. So it's light, it's easy, and you can build whatever you want into it. It's very much a blank canvas because it's such simple ingredients, and it's really focused on the spices that you add to it. So there's this brand, oh shoot, what's the brand called? So there's this chili crisp brand that they sell at Fred Meyer, and it's red and yellow on the front of it, and it has a picture of a little guy on it. It's the weirdest packaging, but it is the most delicious stuff in the entire universe, and it will change any meal that you have. And they
Oh,
were out of it for like 3 weeks, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Everything's gonna taste so bland.
I love that.
Uh-huh.
Yes, finding those staples, you're like, this makes everything that much better.
Yeah, but
Um,
ever since I was little, soup's been my favorite food, soup and noodles. And I eat soup for breakfast, and so I love making the Southeast Asian inspired soups.
nice. Well, and I
Hmm.
love that though, because it's when you start to, I'm reading, I just love traveling. I love global, like just understanding that there's different perspectives on everything. And I mean, the countries, not half the countries, but countries in the world eat soup for breakfast. They eat
Hmm.
rice and that for breakfast. It's not this foreign entity, right? So it's
No,
like, whatever feels good, do it because someone
I
else in
know.
the world is doing it too, right?
Well, and soup is a great way to use up the odds and ends of produce that you have, or also when produce starts to go soft.
Yeah, I love that.
Hmm.
You said you mentioned your other specialty was freezer French toast,
Yeah,
right?
that stuck out with you.
I was like that. And then even the fact that you were using juicer leftovers to make muffins too. I was like, ooh,
Yeah,
those are genius. But tell us a little bit about your freezer French toast. I mean, I feel like lots of people love French toast.
they do. So my husband's the sweet eater in the family. I'm the one that loves sodium, and I can't help it. I've always been that way. I'm working on it, but at least I'm aware of it now. So he loves sweets for breakfast, and so what I started doing, and this I learned from Pioneer Woman, Bree Drummond. I love her. But so whenever you have bread that's starting to go stale, and I've also taken, like a weirdo, whenever I get soup when we're out to eat or anything that comes with bread, I always take the leftover bread because it's just going to get thrown away anyway. And I come home and I make freezer French toast. So basically, it's the whole entire thing of making French toast where you have your eggs, your milk. I add a little vanilla and cinnamon, and you make your French toast. And then you lay it out on a cookie sheet, and you par bake it, or not par bake it, you freeze it in the freezer for like 25 minutes.
Okay.
And so it firms up the toast all on its own. So then you throw it into a Ziploc bag and you just pull it out as you want it. And so to heat it up, it's just 425 for 15 minutes in the oven and have it with some syrup.
Nice.
So it's perfect.
So,
And it's super, yeah, so it's easy, it's budget friendly, and the food's already there, it's available, and then you're not wasting any bread.
I love that so much. Yes, food waste it's real. I mean, they bring it out to your table and then you're like, now where does it go? It goes in my freezer and I'm going to make French toast. Woohoo! Double whammy.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So you really are an entrepreneur through and through. I loved when we chatted. You're like, I have spent grain and I'm doing these wax wraps. And then you started to talk about like kids and school lunch and transforming that. So I think, do you want to talk a little bit more about spent grain and your wax wraps? Because I think both of those are super fascinating. And I meant to grab your wax wrap because they're super cute. She makes them out of these really unique materials. And I'll let you continue.
Oh, yeah, sure. I love the wax wraps. So I sell them right now every Friday at the Athol Farmers Market, which is from 2 to 6. It goes till the end of September, but I'll be adding them to my website to, as well, but you can also just contact me through Instagram to get them. But Beeswax Wraps, so it's a replacement to plastic wrap, and they're reusable for over a year. They seal with just the warmth of your hands. They're really cool things. They do an awesome job of keeping air out. But what made me start making the wax wraps, so it's a combination of two of my loves, which is fashion and fabric and also food waste. So when I was in the fashion world, I saw how wasteful it was and just how much excess fabric there is out there. And I've always loved fabric, loved prints. And so I did a little research on what I can start to do with excess fabric. And I found the beeswax wraps. I said, okay, well, this is perfect. It's combining my two loves. And so I work with a local bee supplier here. I would love to have my own bees, but maybe someday. And then I use only recycled fabric because there's already so much new fabric out there, or there's already so much fabric out there that I refuse to buy new. So I just use little scraps. And so everything is just slightly bent. So nothing's a perfect square, nothing's a perfect rectangle, but it works. And I feel really good about what I'm doing, and I'm getting great feedback on them. They're a pain in the butt to make, but it's worth it.
Well, and it's coming from really like, because I mean, we tried to get rid of cling wrap. I use foil, but like these are literally like I pop them over the top of like my mason jars or around like my half lemon or over around a piece of pizza, anything, right? And they actually like stick. You're not putting plastic on your food, which we all know incorporates all sorts of fun toxins into it. And these are beautiful. Like the one that I have has little like pink flowers on it, but you had like, I could have bought 10 of them because they were all so cool. And then you texted me a picture of your new fabric that has like the little bees on it. And that you got from Goodwill, which I love. It's like repurpose, reuse, keep things toxic free. I love it. So fun.
Yeah, and it's really cute. So my husband, Dan, he's adorable. But what he tells people, because he comes with me to all of my markets every Friday, because he's like, you know, I want to sit by you and support you and watch you do what you love. But whenever he gives me a little break to go walk around and talk to the farmers or go use the restroom, I come back sometimes and I hear him talking to people. And my favorite thing he says is, he's like, I just love that when I open up the fridge, I get to see nothing but pretty little prints.
I love it. That's a good partnership right there, right?
Yeah.
What are you,
exactly.
do you have some fun print on today? I can't see, I can only see your yellow shoulders.
Yeah, it's little elephants.
Ah, awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. When we met for coffee last week, your dress was just like these bright, vibrant colors of, I don't know where, but it was amazing. I love the print and the boldness.
Yes.
So good.
It was a little Hawaiian dress that I got at a flea market in Seattle.
Nice. And don't you love that?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you look into your closet, you're like, it's not just, it's got stories behind it. It takes you back
girl.
to like some fun, sweet location or venue or time. I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. I love when anything that has a story to it.
Right. Yeah, no,
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to touch on spent grain really quick? I know this is kind of one of your future thoughts, but yeah.
Yeah, I will. So like I said, my husband, he makes beer for a living, and he has for 13 years. And the byproduct of the brewing process is spent grain. So it's really good for you. It's high in protein. It's a natural grain that you don't really see a lot in the marketplace. But he gives the majority of the spent grain to a local pig farmer. But I always take a little bit for myself. And with the spent grain, I dry it and make flour. I make crackers, I make bread, soft pretzels, and dog treats. And so really it's just making sure that none of it goes to waste, because there's so much work that goes into the brewing process. And so it's kind of cool to stretch out the byproduct even further.
Right. And he works
but
at
I want
Trails
to
End,
eventually,
right?
Yep, he works at Trails End. And I want to eventually find a way to get this out to more customers. I've tried to sell the baked goods and at the Athol market, and it's kind of lost on the customers right now. They're not really understanding it. So I'm working on that right now and what that could eventually look like in terms of the packaging and also the marketing behind it.
No, I love that. And it's, I mean, the grains are all organic that they're using down there, right? It's like high end really product. It's just, yeah, kind of educating and informing people about what they can do with it and why it's good for them.
Yep, exactly.
I gave it to my dogs. I bought your dog treats and they loved it, but I haven't tried it myself. Is it like chewy, or how does it compare to other grains?
It's sweet.
Oh.
So it reminds me a lot of barley when in terms of flavor, but in terms of texture, I'd say it's more like farro.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so
nice.
it's really good. I love it, and it also makes a really good pizza crust.
Nice, I love that. Well, and I think especially now, I could go on a whole tangent about gluten and wheats, right, that are over processed and then causing inflammation in our gut and health issues and la 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 la. But this is just like, okay, you've got like an organic, an unusual product here that we could consume and might be a little less inflammation causing than a lot of wheats.
Oh, absolutely. I know, it's crazy. I was talking to someone at the Athol market. The people I've met there have just been incredible. Everybody has a story, but there was a girl who was telling me, because I had samples out of the bread, and I said, would you like to try some? And she said, no, I'm gluten intolerant. And I said, okay, no problem. And she said, but I've heard that this grain is a lot less harsh on gluten intolerant people. And she said, it's interesting because I can go overseas, I can go to Europe and I can eat their bread and I have no problem.
Yes, exactly. Right. Exactly. It is the product, I think, too, because we're so good at over processing things or pulling pieces apart. Like, I keep saying this, but it's like the product as nature intended it wouldn't be over processed and like destroyed with the germ pulled out and the bran, and I'm kind of messing that up, but it's in Europe they have so many more stipulations on the food that just isn't causing the same inflammation, of course.
Yeah, so two things. Macaroni and cheese does not count as a processed food. I said so. And in Thailand, so we have friends that live in Thailand, and he owns a hostel, but they come to see us every year because they love the places that we've always moved to, and they're very like-minded people. But they always bring back these concentrated Thai curry packs because preservatives are banned in Thailand.
Interesting. That's good to know. And I hate to say it, but no, that's good. It's nice to find sources that you're like, okay, this isn't got preservatives in it. But I think, like you said, too, it's balance, right? Like, we live in a world where we are racing, and I have my go-to meals that I'm like, okay, I've got the quiche that I bought frozen, and sometimes that's what we eat. Boxed mac and cheese, you might love it, so enjoy it. It's just,
Hmm.
it's coming back to like, but then I go to the farmer's market and get my veggies, and I can cook myself most of the time, and it's balance, as is life, right?
You just gotta live. Listen
Yeah.
and listen to your body. Like if your body says, "Hey, I want this," obviously probably don't eat like 8 cheeseburgers a week if it's saying I want cheeseburgers. But yeah, you just gotta listen and just make sure that you actually enjoy what you're eating. And I think that's another thing that it's a big hang up for me because when people go on diets, they think all they can eat is chicken breast and salad, and they're like, "My meals are so boring," but there's so many ways to make your healthy food and diet friendly meals flavorful, fresher spices.
Yes.
There's so many options out there. Sesame oil.
Yes. Oh my gosh, my favorite. No, you segue so perfectly. So, what are your like go-to pantry staples? I mean, if you, I mean, I know I could go on forever, so I'm curious, what are your favorite like herbs, spices, pantry staples to make everything awesome?
The chili garlic crisp. Yeah, it's so good, by the way. But yeah. So the other things I would say that I can't live without, because you said you too love sesame oil.
Yeah.
So again, it's my chili garlic crisp from Fred Meyer. It's sesame oil, fish sauce, garlic, ginger, green onion, shallot, some kind of tomato, and really good black pepper, and then all of my little Thai packets that I'm very fortunate to be able to have. So, for most people who can't have those, I would say a really good curry paste and also a curry powder.
Nice.
Hmm.
I don't know, what do you look
Oh,
for in
and
the
then one
curry
more
paste?
thing, the everything but the bagel seasoning. That stuff is so good.
Trader Joe's?
Yeah, girl.
Yeah. Have you been to the Asian grocery stores over in Spokane yet? You
Yeah.
have, yeah.
Yep, I already found the one that I like. And I can't remember the name of it. And we went one time and I stocked up completely. But I need to go back there probably in the next couple of weeks because I'm running pretty low on ingredients.
Let me know. I'll come with. And then we can hop over to Trader Joe's.
Hmm.
I love it.
Exactly.
So fun.
Yeah.
What we need around here is a good Indian grocery store. I haven't found one. Have you? Not yet.
No,
Not yet.
no. I guess there's this market that's on the end of Sherman, this little bodega that I don't know if it's Indian or if it's Asian, but I know that they have quite a few global ingredients over there. My friend was telling me about it. So I'll get the name and I'll let you know what it is.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Food. Okay. And finally, just to kind of close, as I am talking and starting this vibrant living conversations like around the area, I'm just really curious in who are your local inspirations? Who do you think I should? I mean, I told you to limit it to three because I feel like you and I could talk about this all day long. So who are your top three kind of local inspirations for just vibrant living ways, however you choose to define that?
Yeah. So as corny as this might sound, the number one on my list would be my husband Dan. So it's not just because he's a very contagious, passionate, like-minded person, but his industry that he works in and his role specifically is all about community, and it's where people come because they know it's safe and they share stories, they have a beer and they eat pizza, and it's all his craft that is bringing them there. And he's inspired by a lot of old European history, and his mentor is from Germany, and he's a very fascinating man to talk to who understands um, the importance of conversation and how it's being lost these days. And again, he brings a lot to a community. In every single area that we've lived in, the very first thing that he does is make sure that we become a part of a community, because he knows that both of us need to be supported by people around us, and we like to share stories and have people not feel like strangers.
I love that. Perfect. Yes. And he's
Yeah,
at Trails and Brewing. So, okay.
he is. He's at Trails and Brewing. And then I would say another one. And um, so when we first moved here in January, we got settled, and then Dan found this company called The Hive, and it's being started by a woman named Melinda Caddy, and she's incredibly powerful, and she's a great speaker. She's very articulate, and she's really all about making sure that women are supported, entrepreneurs are supported, and she's building a platform and an entire space for all of us entrepreneurs out there to go and connect and network, and a space to be able to have your podcasts, a place to be able to have pop-up shops, really just a working space to support everybody's dreams. And such a cool concept. And so she would be another one. And then I would say third, so when I did a pop-up shop at the Hive, and she had a panel of local entrepreneurs who were sharing their stories, how they got started, and what to make sure that you don't give up on, and listening to what inspires them. And there's a woman named Jen, and she owns Leatherbird in Coeur d'Alene. So she makes these awesome little leather earrings that are at a lot of different local businesses around the area, but she's just a genuine person through and through. And as I was starting on my journey, getting my website started, I used her for a resource. Who can I go to help with graphics? And she, no questions asked, would just give me multiple different resources. And it was helpful for the brewery too, when we were trying to figure out some branding things. But she gives a lot back to families around the area and charities around the area. So she would be, you would love chatting with her. She's such a genuine person.
I love that. Well, and this is so funny, but you told me about Melinda last time we chatted, and so I had looked her up and haven't reached out yet. But then I was walking in town a few days ago, and she was like turning the corner. And usually you don't look at people. Like, I was on the sidewalk, she was in the car, and but I saw her face, and I was like, "That's Melinda Caddy. I need to call you." It's just like, that's the small town. Like, I love Coeur d'Alene for, it feels small town community, but we still have like lots of resources and community and great people around this area. So anyway, I love it.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, right. I'm like, oh, well, that's meant to be. That was a reminder. Gemma, call Melinda. So, well, this has been so fun. It's just, yeah, I think as I started this and was just thinking about who I could chat to, and you and I had connected, and I think this is just creating community and finding people that are just trying to, I have language, I call it, but the frequency of the universe, right? Just create good vibes, align with who you are, and just kind of chasing that intuition and those passions to make the world a better place to be in, which I think, especially right now, we all just are like craving, you know?
Oh, what's going on?
I don't know. That COVID thing, what is that? So much, but yeah, anyway, thank you, Chelsey. You're a pleasure, welcome. And I'm excited to come get a beer with you.
Yeah, sounds great, Gemma. Thanks for letting me be a part of this.
Thank you.